Welcome and thank you for joining us in the Sleepy Hub. This time is for you. A space to let go of the weight of the day, a chance to give your body and mind the gift of deep rest. Feel free to use the next few minutes to find your most comfortable position, releasing whatever this day has brought you. Tonight's story brings us into the sky with a history of aviation. But first, I will walk you through a relaxation for your body and mind. Move around finding the best, most comfortable position. Maybe lying on your back, arms resting softly at your sides, or perhaps curled onto your side, with a pillow tucked beneath your head, just right. However you choose, let your body begin to settle into the surface beneath you. Take a deep, gentle breath in and release it slowly. Another breath in, filling your lungs with calm, and exhale, letting go of any tension. Now, bring your awareness to the very top of your head. Imagine a soft wave of relaxation, like a warm breeze, slowly washing down through your forehead, smoothing out every line, every crease. Your eyes feel heavy now, lids soft, sinking. There's nothing left to see, nothing you need to do. This wave of calm moves down to your cheeks, your jaw. If you've been holding on to tightness there, allow your jaw to loosen. Lips parting just slightly, your tongue resting softly. Now feel the calm drift down your neck and across your shoulders. You may notice the shoulders drop a little, as if a weight has been lifted. Let that sense of release deepen, melting tension, muscle by muscle. Breathe slowly, peacefully. With every breath, the wave continues. It moves down your arms, through your elbows, into your hands, all the way to the tips of your fingers. Your arms grow heavy, warm, relaxed. Now, let the wave reach your chest. Your heart slows to a steady, restful rhythm. Your breathing finds its natural pace, easy, effortless. The calm drifts down your back, gently smoothing, releasing, down into your belly, softening, easing. Your hips, your thighs, your knees, all heavy, relaxed, grounded. Now into your calves, your ankles, and your feet. The wave moves all the way to your toes. From the crown of your head to the soles of your feet, your body is bathed in peace. Allow yourself to sink fully into the bed as if you could melt into it. The surface beneath you holds you safely. You are supported, you are cared for, you are free to rest. Take one more deep, easy breath in and sigh it out slowly. And now, imagine that you are floating gently in twilight, safe, calm, and ready to dream. And as your body rests, let your mind come with me on a story that begins long ago, with humanity's very first dream of flight. Chapter 1. Ancient Dreams of Flight. Since the beginning of time, People have looked up at the sky and wondered what it might feel like to join the birds, to rise on invisible currents, to soar above mountains and seas, to drift effortlessly among the clouds. The dream of flight is as old as storytelling itself. In the myths of ancient Greece, we find the story of Daedalus and Icarus. Daedalus, a brilliant craftsman, longed to escape the island where he and his son were trapped. He built wings of feathers and wax, attaching them carefully to their arms. "Fly close to me," he warned Icarus, "but not too high, for the sun will melt the wax. And not too low, for the sea will drag you down." Together they leapt into the air, gliding for the first time on man-made wings. The freedom was exhilarating, but Icarus, carried away by wonder, flew too close to the sun. The wax melted, the feathers scattered, and he fell into the sea. His story has echoed through centuries, a reminder of both the power and danger of dreaming too boldly. Other cultures too imagine the gift of flight. In Chinese legends, emperors sent servants skyward on great kites, lifted by the wind. In India, the ancient Sanskrit texts spoke of flying chariots called vimanas, radiant machines that could soar across the heavens. In Norse mythology, the god Loki borrowed falcon feathers to fly swiftly from one world to another. And across the Americas, shamans wore feathered cloaks, believing that in spirit they could rise and travel beyond the earth. Always, the longing for flight was tied to imagination, to magic, and to myth. It seemed impossible, and yet irresistible. As centuries passed, that dream took shape in drawings and experiments. One of the most famous dreamers was Leonardo da Vinci. In the late 1400s, Leonardo filled notebooks with sketches of flying machines. He drew great ornithopters, contraptions with vast wings that flapped like birds. He studied the curve of feathers, the angle of wings, the way air moved around them. Though none of his designs ever left the ground, his ideas carried the spark of curiosity forward. He wrote that once a person has tasted flight, they will forever look at the sky, for there they long to return. Still, true flight remained elusive, but people were not discouraged. They tried balloons of silk filled with smoke. They studied the way birds spread their wings, learning that lift required not just flapping, but shape and angle. They experimented, failed, and tried again. One of the earliest real successes came in 1783 in France, when the Montgolfier brothers launched the very first hot air balloon. It was a delicate, colourful globe rising gently into the sky. At first, it carried only a sheep, a duck, and a rooster. They floated above the astonished crowds, safe and unharmed. Later, men climbed aboard, and for the first time in history, human beings truly flew. The air was silent, the view endless. It was not the beating of wings, but the lift of heated air that carried them. Imagine standing there in the fields of France, watching a balloon drift away into the heavens. The wonder, the awe, the realization that the sky was no longer unreachable. For thousands of years, flight had been a dream. Now it was becoming real. And yet, this was only the beginning. The dream of flight was awakening, and humanity was only taking its first steps into the air. Chapter 2: Early Gliders and Experiments. As the 19th century unfolded, the dream of flight took on new shapes. Humanity had floated with balloons, drifting wherever the wind decided to take them. But people began to imagine something more. Not just floating, but flying, steering through the sky with wings like birds. It was a time of patient observation. Inventors, scientists, and dreamers all turned their eyes upward, studying the effortless motion of storks, gulls, and hawks. They realized that the secret to flight was not just the ability to rise, but the power to glide, to move forward on currents of air. One of the most dedicated among them was a German man named Otto Lilienthal. He became known as the Glider King. In the late 1800s, Otto built strange wooden contraptions with wide wings stretched over frames. He would carry them up grassy hills and then leap into the air, letting the breeze lift him. Slowly, carefully, he learned how to balance his body, how to shift his weight to stay aloft. Crowds gathered to watch as he soared briefly above the ground, a human bird. His flights were short, but they proved something powerful, that controlled, heavier-than-air flight was possible. Otto recorded everything he learned, filling notebooks with data, sketches, and reflections. His experiments were not just stunts, they were science. And yet, flight was never easy. Otto knew the risks. In 1896, during one of his glides, he lost control. His craft crashed, and he was fatally injured. His last words were simple, but full of faith. Sacrifices must be made. He believed his work would open the skies to others, and he was right. His notes and courage inspired a new generation of inventors across the world. Meanwhile, in England, Sir George Cayley was quietly unraveling the principles of flight. As early as 1804, he had built small gliders that could lift into the air. He discovered that wings needed a curved surface to generate lift, that stability required a tail, and that propulsion would someday be necessary. He is often called the father of aeronautics, for he gave flight a scientific foundation. Others followed: John Montgomery in California, Alexander Mozhaysky in Russia, and Samuel Langley in the United States, each experimenting with models, engines, and designs. Some contraptions sputtered, some toppled, but each brought humanity closer to controlled flight. And then, across the ocean in Dayton, Ohio, two brothers quietly watched these efforts with keen interest. Wilbur and Orville Wright were bicycle makers by trade. They knew about balance, mechanics, and patience. They studied Lilienthal's notes carefully. They built small models and tested them in homemade wind tunnels. Their goal was clear: to design a machine that could not only glide, but sustain itself in the air with power. The world did not yet know it, but the Wright brothers were preparing to change history. As we drift through this time of fragile gliders and daring leaps, imagine standing in a field, watching a lone figure run with wooden wings strapped to his arms. The air is cool, the breeze steady, and for a few precious seconds, he rises, defying the pull of the earth. The moment is brief, but it plants a seed of hope. Humanity is learning. Humanity is inching closer to the sky. And so, the dream continues, carrying us toward a small sandy beach in North Carolina, where history would soon be made. Chapter 3. The First Flights. At the dawn of the 20th century, the dream of flight was about to become reality. The stage was not a grand city, nor a place crowded with people. Instead, it was a quiet stretch of sandy beach, windswept and remote, on the coast of North Carolina. The place was called Kitty Hawk. Wilbur and Orville Wright had chosen this spot for its steady winds and soft sand, forgiving for crashes and open for experiments. They were not men of wealth or fame. They were bicycle makers, curious, patient, and persistent. But in their workshop, and through countless experiments, they had built something the world had never truly seen before: a heavier-than-air flying machine with its own engine. It was December 17th, 1903. The air was crisp and the wind strong. The brothers prepared their craft, which they called the Flyer. It was made of spruce wood, muslin fabric, and ingenuity. Its wings stretched over 40 feet. A small engine sat beside the pilot's position, powering twin propellers through a chain system, much like the bicycles they had once repaired in Dayton. Orville was chosen for the first attempt. He lay on his stomach across the lower wing, hands gripping the controls, his body tense but steady. Wilbur ran beside him, guiding the flyer along its wooden rail. The machine rattled, lifted slightly, and then it rose. For 12 seconds, the flyer stayed aloft, covering 120 feet. It was not long, not high, not far, but it was enough. Humanity had left the ground under its own power. Imagine being there. The crunch of sand underfoot, the cold air rushing past, the sight of this fragile craft lifting into the sky. It must have felt like a miracle, and yet it was the result of careful study, endless trial and error, and quiet determination. They tried again. Over the course of that single day, the brothers made 4 flights. The longest lasted nearly a full minute and traveled over 850 feet. Each flight was better, steadier, more confident. The dream was no longer only a dream. It was now fact. News of the event spread slowly at first. Many people could not believe it. A flying machine. Impossible, they said. Even newspapers hesitated to report it, unsure if the claims were true. But the Wright brothers knew. They had felt the wind carry them, had guided their craft through the air, had touched the future. The flyer was delicate, built of wood and cloth, and soon damaged by the elements. But its legacy was far greater than its frame. With those short flights at Kitty Hawk, the course of human history changed forever. Pause for a moment and picture the scene once more. The dunes rolling softly to the sea, the waves crashing gently in the distance. The Wright brothers, laughing, exhilarated, brushing sand from their clothes, filled with wonder at what they had just done. The air itself seemed different that day, as if it had opened its arms to welcome them in. And so, from that windswept beach, humanity took its first true steps into the sky. It was the beginning of an age where distance would shrink, borders would blur, and the world would feel closer than ever before. As night falls on Kitty Hawk, the Wright flyer rests on the sand, silent now. But the dream it carried into the air would never return to the ground. Chapter 4, World War I, Innovations. Just 10 short years after the Wright brothers first lifted into the skies at Kitty Hawk, the world was at war. In 1914, Europe descended into conflict, and the fragile dream of flight was swept into a new role. Not just a marvel, not just an experiment, but a tool of strategy, of speed, and of survival. At the start of the First World War, airplanes were still young, uncertain, and somewhat unreliable. They sputtered into the air, their engines coughing, their wings trembling in the wind. At first, they were used simply to observe, pilots leaning over the sides to sketch maps and track enemy movements. The view from above was revolutionary. For the first time in history, commanders could see the land as the birds did, stretching far beyond the limits of human eyes. But soon, those observation planes were joined by others, and the skies became contested space. Pilots carried pistols, then rifles, then machine guns bolted to their craft. It was clumsy at first, awkward, but necessity has always been the mother of invention. Engineers found ways to time the firing of guns so that bullets would pass harmlessly between spinning propeller blades. Suddenly, the airplane was no longer just an eye in the sky. It was a weapon, agile and swift. Imagine the scene. The whir of engines above a quiet countryside, the flash of canvas wings glinting in the sun. 2 small aircraft circling each other in a cautious dance. What had begun as reconnaissance soon became the first dogfights, duels in the air between daring young pilots. These pilots, many scarcely older than boys, became legends in their own time. Names like the Red Baron, Manfred von Richthofen, drifted across newspapers. His crimson-painted plane became a symbol of fear and fascination. On the Allied side, aces like René Fonck and Eddie Rickenbacker wrote their names into history with every victory. To those on the ground, these pilots seemed almost otherworldly, knights of the sky, dueling high above the mud and trenches. And yet beneath the excitement, there was also deep loss. Airplanes were fragile, their engines unpredictable, and the risks were immense. But even in the midst of war, every flight was a step forward in knowledge. Every engine failure, every new design, every crash led to improvements. Metal replaced wood in certain parts. Engines grew stronger, more reliable. Aircraft could fly higher, faster, farther. By the time the war ended in 1918, airplanes had changed forever. What had been fragile experiments just a decade before were now essential machines. They could scout, they could fight, they could carry messages across distances unthinkable before. And yet, there was something poetic about those early days of aerial combat. Between the horror of war, there were still moments of humanity. Stories are told of pilots saluting each other mid-air before engaging in battle. Moments when, even in conflict, the shared wonder of flight connected them. As the world exhaled after the war, aviation exhaled too. The lessons learned in those turbulent years would not be lost. They would become the foundation of a new era, an age where airplanes would not only serve nations at war, but soon carry passengers in peace. Picture the skies in the years after the war, quieter now, but filled with new possibilities. The whine of engines over fields, the steady hum of innovation, the certainty that humanity had only just begun to explore the vast blue above. And so, with the close of the First World War, the airplane had transformed. No longer fragile, no longer doubtful, it was now a proven companion of humankind, a partner in discovery, in travel, and soon, in adventure. Chapter 5: The Golden Age of Aviation. The war had ended, and the world, weary and bruised, turned its eyes toward peace. With it came a hunger for exploration, for discovery, for proving what was possible. The 1920s and 30s became known as the Golden Age of Aviation, a time when pilots were heroes, and the airplane was not only a tool but a symbol of freedom and hope. In this era, the skies filled with daring records and daring people. Every month seemed to bring a new distance achieved, a new altitude reached, a new dream fulfilled. Aviation was still young, but it was growing up quickly, becoming smoother, faster, more reliable. One of the greatest names of this time was Charles Lindbergh. In 1927, he set out to do what many thought impossible: to fly alone, non-stop, across the vast Atlantic Ocean. His aircraft, the Spirit of St. Louis, was small, cramped, and stripped of luxuries. There was no radio, no forward windshield, just a tiny periscope for vision. And yet Lindbergh climbed into the cockpit and began his journey. For over 33 hours he flew, through fog, through exhaustion, across endless waters. Alone in the silence of the sky, he pressed onward. When at last he landed in Paris, tens of thousands of people rushed to greet him. The crowd roared, the world celebrated, and Lindbergh became a symbol of what one determined human could achieve. His flight proved that oceans were no longer barriers, they were pathways waiting to be crossed. But the Golden Age was not only about men. Amelia Earhart became one of its brightest stars. Graceful, determined, and fearless, she showed that the skies belonged to women as much as to men. In 1932, she became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. Later, she set records for distance and speed, always pushing the boundaries of possibility. She spoke often about the call of the sky, the way flying made her feel alive and free. Her mysterious disappearance in 1937, while attempting to circle the globe, only deepened her legend. To this day, her name carries both inspiration and mystery, reminding us of the courage it takes to chase the horizon. It was also a time of air races and spectacle. Crowds gathered at fields and fairs to watch pilots perform daring stunts, loop the loops, and dives. Air shows filled the skies with acrobatics. Speed records were broken, then broken again. The airplane was no longer just a machine. It was entertainment. It was wonder. It was proof that the future was arriving. At the same time, air travel for ordinary people began to blossom. Airmail carried letters across countries in record time. Airlines began offering passenger flights, though they were still bumpy, noisy, and expensive. The dream of commercial flight was not yet comfortable, but it was real. Imagine yourself in those years. Perhaps you stand in a grassy field, looking up as a silver plane hums overhead. To your grandparents, the sight of a plane was extraordinary. To your parents, it became familiar. This shift, this sense of a world changing before their eyes, gave people hope. If we could conquer the sky, what else might be possible? The golden age of aviation was not only about speed or records. It was about romance, about the spirit of adventure, about believing that the human story was expanding. The horizon was no longer fixed. With every flight, it stretched farther. And so, the 1920s and 30s carried aviation into the hearts of people everywhere. Flight was no longer only the dream of inventors and engineers. It was now the dream of humanity itself, a dream that carried us toward the future faster than ever before. Chapter 6: World War II and the Jet Age. As the 1930s gave way to the 1940s, the world found itself in turmoil once again. The Second World War spread across continents, and just as it had in the Great War before, the airplane became an essential part of the struggle. But this time, the machines were faster, stronger, and more advanced than ever before. In the early years of the war, skies filled with propeller-driven fighters and bombers. Sleek aircraft like the British Spitfire, with its elegant wings and graceful maneuvering, became symbols of resilience. Across the ocean, American designs such as the Mustang brought speed and endurance to the battlefields. In the Pacific, carrier-based planes leapt from the decks of great ships, showing how air power could stretch across vast oceans. But even amid the noise of conflict, there was beauty in the sky. Imagine the Spitfire climbing above green English fields, its engine humming steadily, its silver wings catching the sun. For those who looked upward, these aircraft represented not only war, but courage, hope, and the human will to endure. During this time, airplanes grew in size and strength. Massive bombers like the B-17 and the Lancaster carried heavy loads across great distances. They lumbered through the night sky in formation, engines droning, while crews looked out over the clouds in silence. Above them, stars still shone, indifferent to the battles below. And in the background of this era, a new revolution was quietly taking shape, the age of the jet. Engineers in Germany and Britain had begun experimenting with engines that no longer relied on propellers. Instead, they compressed air and fuel, igniting them in a powerful stream that could propel an aircraft faster than ever before. In 1939, the world saw the very first jet-powered flight. At first, these machines were rare and experimental, fragile in their own way. But they represented the future. Their sleek designs whispered of speeds once thought impossible. The sound they made, a piercing roar, was unlike anything heard before in aviation. By the end of the war, jets were beginning to replace propellers. Planes could now climb higher, fly faster, and travel farther. The boundaries of the sky seemed to stretch open even wider. The transition was not only about power, but about possibility. The jet age promised a new era, one where distances between cities would shrink, where oceans would be crossed with ease, and where the sky itself would feel closer to humanity than ever before. When the war finally ended in 1945, the world carried with it not only the scars of conflict, but also the lessons of innovation. Aircraft had advanced in a few short years more than anyone might have imagined. And And though the machines had been built for war, they were about to be reshaped for peace. The roar of the jet engine, once a sound of battle, would soon become the sound of travel, of exploration, of families reunited and new horizons reached. The jet age had dawned, and the skies would never be the same. Chapter 7. Commercial Flight. With the war behind them, people longed for peace, for movement, for reunion. Out of the roar of engines designed for battle came something new: air travel for the everyday person. The dream of flight shifted once again, from survival to comfort, from necessity to possibility. In the years following World War II, commercial airlines began to expand rapidly. One name, in particular, rose to prominence: Pan American World Airways, known simply as Pan Am. Its blue globe logo became a symbol of elegance and international adventure. Flying with Pan Am meant stepping into a world of white-gloved service, crisp uniforms, and the promise of distant horizons. Imagine boarding one of their gleaming aircraft in the 1950s. The cabin was filled with the scent of polished leather and fresh coffee. Windows framed soft clouds drifting by. Flight attendants moved gracefully down the aisle, offering meals served on real plates, with silverware and wine. Flying was not yet common, and it was far from ordinary. It was an event, a luxury, a symbol that the world was changing. Then came the revolution of the jetliner. No longer bound to the slower pace of propeller planes, travelers could now cross oceans in mere hours. The Boeing 707 opened this new era, but it was the Boeing 747, the queen of the skies, that truly transformed air travel. With its wide body and upper deck, the 747 could carry hundreds of passengers at once. Entire families, business people, students, and explorers could all share the same flight, soaring across continents together. The world felt smaller, more connected, more within reach. For those who flew on the early 747s, it was unforgettable. The spacious cabin, the sense of scale, the realization that you were part of something extraordinary. This was no longer just about elite travelers or daring pioneers. It was about ordinary people, stepping into the sky and landing in new lands within a single day. And then there was the Concorde, sleek, sharp, and fast. A supersonic jet, it could cross the Atlantic in just 3.5 hours, flying at twice the speed of sound. Its pointed nose, slender wings, and roaring engines made it unlike any other aircraft. Passengers dined on fine champagne and gourmet meals while racing through the stratosphere at incredible speed. Flying Concorde was not just travel. It was an experience, a statement, a glimpse of the future. Though the Concorde would eventually retire, its memory still lingers, a reminder of how high aviation dared to reach. The Boeing 747, meanwhile, carried on for decades, becoming a workhorse of the skies, ferrying millions of passengers across every corner of the globe. Commercial flight had done something profound. It had taken the dream of flight, once the realm of myth, then of daring inventors, then of war machines, and placed it gently into the lives of people everywhere. Imagine sitting by the window of a jet, gazing out as the sun sets above the clouds, painting the horizon in gold and violet. Far below, oceans and mountains pass silently by. The hum of the engines is steady, reassuring. You close your eyes, knowing that when you wake, you may be in a new country, a new world, a place once impossibly far away. This is the gift of commercial flight. Not only speed, but connection. The chance for loved ones to embrace across oceans, for cultures to meet, for the world to grow closer, day by day, mile by mile. Chapter 8. Modern Aviation. As the 20th century came to a close and the new millennium began, aviation continued to evolve. The skies, once reserved for the adventurous and the wealthy, had become a highway for humanity. Flights crisscrossed the globe daily, carrying millions of people to work, to family, to dreams. One of the giants of this modern era is Airbus, a European company that reimagined what an airplane could be. Their crown jewel, the Airbus A380, became the largest passenger aircraft in the world. With 2 full decks stretching the length of the fuselage, it could carry over 800 people at once. Inside, airlines outfitted the A380 with lounges, bars, and even showers. For some, stepping aboard felt less like entering a plane and more like entering a floating hotel. Then came Boeing's Dreamliner, the 787. Sleek, efficient, and designed for comfort, it changed the passenger experience in subtle but meaningful ways. Windows were larger, filling cabins with natural light. Air pressure was adjusted to feel gentler on the body. The materials were lighter, the engines quieter. The design focused on making long journeys less tiring. For travelers, the Dreamliner became a symbol of how modern technology could make flying not only possible, but pleasant. Private jets also rose in prominence during this time. Sleek business aircraft carried executives, celebrities, and leaders across continents with speed and privacy. While commercial airlines opened the skies to the masses, private jets offered something more intimate: the freedom to choose when and where to fly, with no schedules and no lines. Yet whether on a massive A380, a graceful Dreamliner, or a small private jet, the feeling of flight remained the same. The quiet hum of engines, the gentle tilt as the plane banks, the view of the Earth spread out like a map below. For all the advances, there is still a moment when passengers press their faces to the window, caught in awe at the sight of clouds drifting by. Airports too became symbols of connection, vast terminals where people from every nation crossed paths. In one moment, you might hear 10 languages, see 10 cultures, all gathering in one place to wait for the same thing: the call to board, the chance to rise into the sky. Flying became so normal, so routine, that many forgot how magical it truly was. But if you pause to notice the way the wings flex gently in turbulence, the glow of the cabin lights at night, the sense of moving effortlessly across oceans, you can feel it again. The marvel that the Wright brothers began at Kitty Hawk now touches lives every day, in every corner of the globe. Modern aviation is not only about getting from one place to another, it is about bringing the world closer, shrinking the distance between cultures, and weaving humanity together through shared skies. And still, the story of flight is not finished. Just as the myths of Icarus gave way to the dreams of Da Vinci, and the gliders of Lilienthal gave way to the flyer at Kitty Hawk, today's jets will someday give way to something new. The horizon is still waiting, full of promise. Chapter 9: The Future of Flight. The story of flight is not over. Even now, engineers, dreamers, and explorers are shaping the next chapter. Just as the Montgolfiers, Lilienthal, and the Wright brothers once pushed beyond what seemed possible, so too are people today, gazing upward and asking, what comes next? One path leads to quieter skies. Around the world, inventors are designing electric planes, powered not by roaring jet fuel, but by silent currents of energy. These aircraft hum softly, producing little more than a whisper as they lift into the air. Someday, they may carry passengers across short distances with almost no sound at all, their wings gliding like birds through a still evening sky. Others are working on sustainable fuels, ways to make air travel lighter on the planet. Imagine boarding a plane that leaves behind only clean air, flying from city to city without the weight of guilt. The dream of flight, once a miracle, may yet become a gift to the Earth itself. And beyond the sky, another dream is unfolding. Space travel, once reserved for astronauts and science fiction, is now opening its doors. Companies launch sleek rockets carrying ordinary people beyond the clouds, past the thin blue line of atmosphere, and into the vast quiet of space. From there, the Earth looks small, round and glowing, a fragile jewel floating in darkness. Perhaps someday, boarding a flight to the stars will feel as routine as flying across an ocean. Families may take vacations on the moon, explorers may travel to Mars, and children may grow up dreaming not only of being pilots, but of being voyagers among the planets. The horizon has no end. Flight has always been about more than distance. It has been about possibility. And every time humanity has reached the edge of what was known, it has stretched its wings further. Now, as you lie here listening, you too can imagine that journey. See yourself stepping onto an aircraft of the future, sleek, silent, graceful. The cabin glows with soft light. The engines are nearly soundless. Outside your window, the stars shimmer. The plane lifts gently, effortlessly, carrying you higher and higher until you are gliding between worlds. And yet, even in that imagined future, the feeling remains the same as it has always been. The hum of movement, the stillness of the night sky, the sense of wonder, the gentle reminder that you are part of something vast and beautiful. So as our story drifts to its close, let your body rest deeper. Let your mind float with the memory of flight, from Icarus to Da Vinci, from Kitty Hawk to the Dreamliner, from this moment into the possibilities yet to come. The wonders of airports. Airports are more than buildings. They are thresholds, the quiet space between one world and another, between where we are and where we dream of going. In the earliest days of flight, airports were simple fields, a strip of grass, a wooden hangar, a few men in caps waving flags to guide the pilots. Travelers arrived by horse carriage or early motorcars, stepping onto soft earth, greeted by the smell of oil and fresh-cut grass. There was no roar of jets, no lines, no announcements. Only the excitement of seeing a fragile airplane waiting in the morning sun, wings stretched, ready to rise. As flight grew, so too did the places that welcomed it. Hangars became terminals. Grass became paved runways, long ribbons stretching into the horizon. Small stations grew into bustling hubs, each one a reflection of the cities they served. Imagine walking through an airport in the 1930s. Marble floors beneath your feet, large clocks on the walls, windows that framed the glint of silver aircraft waiting outside. Men in hats, women in elegant dresses, all gathered in lounges where waiters poured coffee into china cups. Air travel was rare, luxurious, and airports reflected that, a blend of sophistication and anticipation. By the 1950s and 60s, as the jet age blossomed, airports became gateways to the modern world. Pan Am's terminal at JFK in New York, the famous Worldport, was shaped like a giant flying saucer, its sweeping roof arching over passengers as they boarded sleek jets bound for London, Paris, or Tokyo. To step inside was to feel you were part of something futuristic, something vast and exciting. Airports are alive with stories. Each departure gate holds 100 different dreams. Families reunited, students setting off for study abroad, explorers chasing horizons, and business travelers carrying ideas across oceans. At the same time, every arrivals hall is filled with embraces, long-awaited reunions, tearful hellos, the quiet joy of someone stepping safely onto solid ground again. Yet, in the midst of their busyness, airports also carry a strange kind of stillness. Picture yourself at a window overlooking the runway. Outside, planes taxi slowly, their lights blinking softly in the dusk. The sky glows in shades of violet and gold. Inside, people speak in hushed tones. Announcements drift gently over the speakers, and time seems to stretch. Airports exist in their own rhythm. Not quite day, not quite night, not here, not yet there. Some airports have become wonders in themselves. In Singapore, Changi Airport feels almost like a garden, filled with waterfalls, butterfly enclosures, and quiet spaces where travelers can rest between flights. In Doha, Hamad International greets passengers with vast art installations, light streaming through high windows, and soft carpets underfoot. Each airport reflects the spirit of its nation, offering travelers a first impression or a final memory of the land they visit. Even the smallest airports have their own magic, a single runway stretching into fields, a terminal with only a few gates where staff greet you by name, the excitement of hearing your plane called, of walking across the tarmac in the open air, of climbing the stairs to board, and always, there is the anticipation. Airports are liminal spaces, in-between spaces. You are neither where you began nor where you are going. Instead, you are suspended in possibility, waiting, resting, imagining. The very air seems charged with the energy of departure. For those who love flight, there is nothing quite like the moment when engines start to hum outside the terminal window. The vibrations pass through the glass, a quiet reminder that soon, you too will rise. You watch the plane taxi, turn, and then, with grace and power, lift into the sky. A reminder that, in just moments, it will be your turn. Airports are not only about machines and schedules, they are about people. They are about the gentle connections between strangers sitting side by side, about the child staring wide-eyed at planes through the glass, about the traveler closing their eyes and dreaming of the place awaiting them. Tonight, as you drift deeper into rest, imagine yourself in a quiet airport, not crowded, not rushed. The floors shine beneath soft light. The air is cool, the voice is low. Outside, a single airplane waits, its lights glowing like stars in the twilight. Soon, you will board. Soon, you will rise. But for now, you are simply here, suspended between worlds, wrapped in calm anticipation. The wonders of airports are not only in their size or their design, they are in the feeling they carry, the feeling that the world is open, that journeys are possible, that the sky is waiting. And so, as your breathing slows, let yourself rest in that in-between space, safe, calm, ready, a traveler not in a hurry, but at peace. Soon, the story of flight will carry you onward once again. Take a slow breath in and a long, easy breath out. Feel the calm in your chest, the softness in your muscles, the peace in your thoughts. The story of flight is long, but tonight your story is simple. To rest, to dream, to sleep. And so, let the engines of thought grow quiet now. Let the wings of your imagination fold gently. And allow yourself to drift into the deep, peaceful skies of sleep. Good night.